Page 1. Man and Beast. By Bertrand L. Comparet. Taken from your heritage. Prepared into a PDF file by Clifton A. Emmaheiser's Teaching Ministries plus critical note. In these studies, it has been our custom to frequently review current events in detail, because these show the fulfillment of Bible prophecies in our day. However, in covering the subject I now want to discuss, I shall not have much occasion to list these events in detail, and this for a definite reason. There are times when it is not so important to count every bead on the string, as it is to see whether they are all strung on the same string. When you learn this, you will know where to look for the next bead. My purpose is to show the existence of certain definite principles, which govern the events which we see happening, as these principles have governed them for thousands of years. For ages, it was well understood by everyone that various nations and races had certain characteristics, which usually would be demonstrated in the actions of these people. National and racial policies and conduct developed out of national and racial character. There were, the rare exceptions in these, a certain type of mind seizes upon as proof there was no general rule. The exception merely proves the rule. Similarly, we can note that among crows, 1 bird in every 38 million is white and albino. But this only emphasizes the rule that all of the other 38 million crows are black. Therefore, reasonably consistent conduct can be identified as the rule, notwithstanding an occasional exception which surprises us when we find it. Among the ancients, nobody pretended to be ignorant of the characteristics of the Babylonians, Egyptians, Assyrians, or the Romans, or what they were likely to do in order to execute their purposes. Roman military ability in war and harshness in rule over conquered people were well understood, and nobody was surprised to meet them. The extreme ferocity and cruelty of the Assyrians was known to all. Centuries of history demonstrated a consistency in these characteristics which only a fool could ignore. In our own times, everyone understood the Japanese were a warlike people, and had been for 2,000 years. Therefore, only the ignorant or the stupid were surprised to learn Japan wanted to conquer many other nations. However, we had to learn by terrible, first-hand experience that the Japanese also had the Asiatic characteristics of treachery and senseless cruelty for its own sake. This cruelty was not just typically Japanese, it was typically Asiatic. We see the same traits displayed by the Red Chinese in their treatment of the people of Tibet, as well as their cruelty to our soldiers when they were captured. During both the First and Second World Wars, those strange alien people called Jews, who are so busily brainwashing us today to suit their own purposes, then propagandized us into believing many hideous lies about the Germans. From these lies, we were expected to believe that the Germans were so inherently wicked that they were about to invade Beverly Hills or Las Vegas. Then they taught us that inborn racial characteristics would be manifested in conduct whenever the situation called for it. But Page 2. Now this alien minority group of Jews teaches us, by corrupting most of our schools, newspapers, news commentators, even many of our churches, that there are no longer any racial characteristics or tendencies, no fixed long-range national purposes. These Jews now want us to believe all people in the world, white, black, yellow or brown, civilized or savage, are exactly alike, as interchangeable as Ford parts. They have spent many millions of dollars on a high-pressure propaganda campaign, designed to blind us to the racial and national characteristics and purposes which are molding the course of history today, as they have molded history throughout all time. It might be well to ask ourselves, what makes this worth so much money to them? Just how are they planning to get back this enormous investment? We can get a better perspective on present-day affairs if we view them as a continuation of thousands of years of uninterrupted history. If we look not only for what happened, but also why it happened. Nothing important is a true accident. For every occurrence there is a cause. History is usually written as merely a list of effects, that is why we learn so few lessons from it. We will never really understand history until we list the causes also. Past history, current events and the coming events of the future, all consist of the actions of people. Whether their actions are good or bad, people do what they do because they are what they are, the kind of people who do good or bad things. Conduct is the product of character. The man who is kind and trustworthy by nature doesn't become a Jack the Ripper or a kidnapper of children, his own nature prevents it. The man who is by nature cruel or dishonest will, sooner or later, act like what he is. The dull do not become brilliant merely because they receive legal permission to do so. Since nations and races are just great numbers of individual people, they will display those traits which are characteristic of most of their people. Therefore, if we can learn something about what kinds of people there are, this may help us to understand their actions, even to learn what to expect from them in the future. For their own purposes, men make various classifications of things and of people. But usually, the conclusion they wish to reach dictates the classification which will best support it. Wishful thinking vitiates the result. On the other hand, Yahweh, who views all eternity with a single glance, has his other truths revealed to man, so we must look to the Bible. There we will find that Yahweh has classified several different kinds of beings, all of whom we lump together indiscriminately under one term, man. Yahweh distinguishes between them by using distinctive names for the different kinds of beings. Let's examine them and see if the different words used have any significance as to the kind of people they denote, the level of character and spiritual understanding to be found in the different kinds of beings identified by their different names. Several different Hebrew words have all been indiscriminately translated man or men in the King James Bible, although some very important differences of meaning show clearly on the face of these words. First, let us consider the word which denotes our white race. The Hebrew word Adam, called Adam in your Bible, is from the root word meaning to be of a ruddy complexion, to show blood in the face, something obviously not applicable to Negroes or Mongolians, but only to the white race. When used to denote the first white man Adam, the Hebrew always says the Adam. When used of his descendants, the Hebrew just says Adam, the King James Bible translates it man. Page 3. Another word used in contrast to Adam is Enosh, which is always used in a derogatory sense. Its root meaning is mortal and implies weakness, physically or morally, wretchedness. It is applied to non-Adamic races, which are of course all pre-Adamic. It should be noted the pre-Adamic races are not limited geographically to just certain parts of the earth, but some of them are found mingled among the Adamites. A third Hebrew word translated man is ish, literally, it means a male person or a husband. It is used for mankind in general and can be applied to either an Adamite or a pre-Adamite. The feminine form is Isha, the plural of which is Nashim. This is so similar to the plural of Anash, Anashim, they have often been confused, leading to many mistakes in translation. There are three other closely related words, Geber, Gebar and Gibbor, which are all derived from a root meaning to be strong. These are usually translated mighty man or warrior. These last three can cause no confusion, so they need not concern us further. Now, let's note a few examples of the use of these words in the Bible. In place of the English word man, I will use the Hebrew word used in the original. Ezekiel 34:31 records, and ye my flock, the flock of my pasture, are Adam, and I am your God, saith Yahweh. Psalm 115:116 states, the heaven, even the heavens, are Yahweh's, but the earth hath he given to the children of Adam. Note how Yahweh uses Adam and Enosh in contrast. Take Psalm 90:93 for example, thou turnest Enosh to destruction, and sayest, return ye children of Adam. While destruction is visited upon the pre-Adamite Enosh for their persistent wickedness, Yahweh leads the children of Adam back to himself in repentance. Yahweh distinguishes between Adam and Enosh in many places. For example Psalm 8:4, what is Enosh, that thou art mindful of him? And son of Adam, that thou visitest him? Note that while Yahweh is mindful of what the Enosh do, it was the sons of Adam Yahshua visited when Yahshua came to earth. Both racial groups must be disciplined, but the distinction is kept clear even there. Isaiah 2:11 records, the lofty looks of Adam shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of Enosh shall be bowed down, and Yahweh alone shall be exalted in that day. In 2 Samuel 7:14 we read, I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commits iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of Enosh, and with the stripes of the children of Adam. If these were not distinctly different races, there would be no point in using the different words. The Enosh were wicked and are so spoken of. Deuteronomy 13:13 warns, certain Enosh, the children of Belial, are gone out from among you, and have withdrawn the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and worship other gods, which ye have not known. When they gain power, they are brutal oppressors. Psalm 10:17-18 tells us, Yahweh thou hast heard the desire of the humble, thou wilt prepare their hearts, thou wilt cause thine ear to hear, to judge the fatherless and the oppressed. That the Enosh of earth may no more oppress. The Enosh have no spiritual understanding, that is the reason for their continual wickedness. Proverbs 28:5 says, evil Enosh understand not judgment, but they that seek Yahweh understand all things. This distinction is still in effect today. Daniel 12:10, speaking of the time of the end which is our own time states, none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Page 4. This is not all, some races Yahweh classifies as animals, their nations are symbolized as beasts in numerous prophecies. Do you say that this isn't what you have been taught to believe? Then let's look into this a little bit and learn what the Bible says about it. When Jonah finally went to Nineveh with his prophecy that Yahweh intended to destroy the city for its people's wickedness, they believed him. This is not as surprising as it may seem, for the people of Nineveh worshipped Dagon, the fish god. Since they had heard that a great fish had delivered Jonah on the shore, they thought he must be a prophet sent from Dagon, and they were ready to believe him. Jonah chapter 3 says that the king was worried, and he caused it to be proclaimed and published through Nineveh by decree of the king and his nobles, saying, let neither man nor beast, herd nor flock taste anything, let them not feed, nor drink water, but let man and beast be covered with sackcloth and cry mightily unto Yahweh, yea let them turn every one from his evil way and from the violence that is in their hands. And Yahweh said of their works, that they turned from their evil way, and Yahweh repented of the calamity that he said that he would do to them, and he did it not. Now what kind of beasts were these, who put on sackcloth, cried to Yahweh, and turned from their evil way? It says this was the command for man and beast, and that they did so. Is your dog that well trained? Then who was the Bible calling beasts? Let's look into this a bit further. In Genesis chapter 9, Yahweh promises Noah and his family protection. In the 5th verse Yahweh says, "And surely your blood of your lives will I require. At the hand of every beast will I require it, and at the hand of man." These beasts have hands like a man. But there were no monkeys in that region, so these beasts with hands must have been men. In Exodus 19:12-13, when the people of Israel were gathered at the foot of Mt. Sinai while Moses climbed the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments from Yahweh warned him, "And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, Take heed to yourselves, that ye go not up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever toucheth the mount shall surely be put to death. There shall not a hand touch it, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether it be beast or man, it shall not live." We find, whether it be beast or man, it must not touch the mountain with a hand. The 2nd chapter of Genesis tells us Yahweh is looking for a suitable wife for Adam and brings in review before him what the King James Bible calls every beast of the field, to see if a good wife for Adam could be found among them. Do you really think that an all-wise Yahweh had to carefully look over a female scorpion, female toad, female giraffe, or a female elephant, to decide whether one of these would be a suitable wife for Adam? Of course not. Moses didn't write any such foolishness when he wrote the book of Genesis. This is purely the work of translators. In the original Hebrew, the account makes good sense and tells us much about the other races. There are 2 closely related Hebrew words used here, ka'i and kaya, each of which means a living creature. The meaning is far too broad to be translated merely beast or animal, for it includes all living creatures, from microbes to men. Where the King James Bible says beast of the field, the word is always either ka'i or kaya. So a correct translation would be the living beings in the country. That these living beings include men is clear from the same word being applied to Adam. Read Genesis 2:7, "And Yahweh formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his." Page 5. Nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. In the Hebrew it reads, "Then Yahweh God formed the Adam out of dust from the ground and breathed in his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." In the Hebrew it reads, "Then Yahweh God formed the Adam out of the dust of the ground and breathed in his nostrils breath of life, and the Adam became Nefesh Kaya, a breathing creature having life." So the beast of the field, the Kakaya of the field, or more correctly, the living beings in the countryside, actually included the pre-Adamic races. Now Genesis 2:18-20 makes sense. Yahweh saw that Adam needed a wife and, not condemning anybody without a fair chance to make good, Yahweh carefully looked over the pre-Adamic races, African and Asiatic, to see if one of them could be found who was suitable to be Adam's wife and the mother of the new race, but he couldn't find one. In the Hebrew this reads, "And Yahweh said, Not good for the Adam to be alone. I shall make him a helper, as his counterpart. And Yahweh formed from the ground every living being of the fields, and every fowl of the heavens, and bringeth in unto the Adam to see what he doth call it. And whatever the Adam calleth a Nefesh Kaya, a breathing creature having life, that is its name. And the Adam calleth names to all the cattle, and to the fowl of the heavens, and to every living being of the fields, and to him hath not been found an helper as his counterpart." Yahweh recognized Adam's wife must be his counterpart, having the same qualities of spiritual understanding, to be able to transmit to her descendants the same qualities for which Yahweh specially placed Adam in the world. But Yahweh could not find even one out of these pre-Adamic peoples who was Adam's counterpart, having these necessary qualities. Before someone gets the idea that I hate other races, let's look at this thing a little closer. The black race has been on Earth at least 40,000 years for identifiable Negroid skeletons have been discovered which can be scientifically dated as that old. Yet in all those 40,000 years there has never been a Negro civilization. Yes, I know that a few Negro tribal chiefs have conquered other tribes and built themselves up a larger kingdom. But it takes more than the brutal tyranny of a successful war chief to make a civilization, and that was all they had. Don't speak of Egypt. Egypt was in Africa but never Negroid. The beautiful portrait sculptures left by the ancient Egyptians show them to have been clearly a pure white people. In the days of Egypt's greatness, any Negro found north of the first cataract of the Nile River was summarily killed on sight to protect the racial purity of the Egyptians. We don't hate Negroes, we want them to be well-fed, well-clothed, comfortably housed, and in no danger of being eaten by other Negroes, something they have never had except in a civilization created and maintained by white men. Despite all propaganda, every Negro in the United States is far better off than those in Africa. Just try to find any who want to go back to any black nation in Africa. But neither Negroes nor whites will have the blessings of civilization in a nation reduced to black standards of thinking. If the Negroes were capable of producing a civilization at all, 40,000 years is long enough to do it. Yes, I know that in Asia 2,300 years ago, Confucius taught some high ethical principles, but without a word of religion in them. I know the Ming dynasty saw the production of some nice pieces of porcelain, but what did either of these do for the Asiatic people? Did it ever teach them how to produce enough food to fill those fine? Page 6. Porcelain bowls? Shouldn't 2,300 years of Confucian philosophy be enough to develop something more than poverty, disease and misery? Again, the Asiatic mind lacks the true spiritual understanding which Yahweh saw was needed. Aren't the Asiatics who live in the United States better off than those who live in Red China, Korea, or Southeast Asia? We don't hate them, but we don't want them to reduce us to their level. This is what Yahweh was talking about in the Genesis chapter 2, when he said that the other beings living in the country round about could not produce a suitable wife for Adam, as his counterpart. Because of the spiritual understanding which Yahweh put in the Adam, today the white race has the highest civilization, greatest freedom, and the highest standard of living in the world. They are the so-called have nations. We have not hated the other races, we have tried to help them, to show them our ways. In spite of all this, all of them have hated us. In the centuries when we were very few against their many, they repeatedly tried to conquer and destroy us. Yahweh's watchful care over his people didn't allow this to happen, although several times they came dangerously close to success. In lands rich with minerals, they sit in wretchedness and poverty, too lacking in enterprise to mine the enormous wealth beneath their feet. In lands where the fertile soil and ample rainfall cover the land with lush growth, they live in perpetual hunger because they are too dull to clear the land and plant it to food crops. If we provide the capital to pay them for clearing their land for planting and harvesting useful crops, or for digging and refining the minerals in their soil, they curse us for exploiting them. But if we don't, they curse us for being indifferent to their misery. Now, through the United Nations where they outnumber and outvote us, they plan to rule, plunder, enslave, and reduce us to their level. Well, did Yahweh classify them as Enosh, lacking utterly in the spiritual understanding necessary to follow Yahweh's ways? Perhaps you may say, all these were quoted from the Old Testament, but in the New Testament, Yahweh changed his mind and changed all this. Let's see what the New Testament says about them. In his epistle to Titus recorded in Titus 1:12, Paul says, one of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said, the Cretans are always liars, evil beasts. The word beast here is the Greek word therion, meaning a dangerous animal. Jude chapter 10 states, but these speak evil of those things they know not, but what they know naturally, as brute beasts, in those things they corrupt themselves. 2 Peter 2:12 continues, but these, as natural brute beasts, made to be destroyed, speak evil of the things they understand not, and shall utterly perish in their own corruption. These Enosh were commonly called dogs, both in the Old and New Testaments. For example, Psalm chapter 22:16 is recognized by all Bible scholars as prophetic of Yahshua's first coming and crucifixion. In the 16th verse it states, for dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me, they pierced my hands and my feet. Yahweh is certainly not complaining that some four-footed dogs barked at him, there is no record that any ever did. He is speaking of those who delivered him up to be crucified. The use of this word is common in the New Testament. In Philippians 3:2 Paul says, beware of dogs, bad fig Jews, beware of evil workers. The four-footed dogs are no more evil workers than cats and cows. Paul and those to whom he wrote knew these dogs were the two-footed kind. Page 7. If you say, this is discrimination between races, you are exactly right. Has someone told you that monstrous falsehood that it isn't Christian to discriminate between races? Let's see what Yahshua did. In Mark 7:25-29 we read, for a certain woman, whose young daughter had an unclean spirit, heard of him and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. But Yahshua said unto her, let the children first be filled, for it is not right to take the children's bread and to cast it unto the dogs. And she answered and said unto him, Yea, master, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. And he said unto her, for this saying, go thy way, the devil is gone out of thy daughter. Yahshua certainly did discriminate, not until the woman recognized the righteousness of the discrimination did he help her. She had first asked help of him on the same basis as the Israelites, true. Adam, on that basis she was not entitled to it. Yahshua told her, let the children first be filled with the bread of life. Then they will establish the kingdom of Yahweh on earth, and from this Yahweh's blessings will be extended to such others as can understand and receive them in the proper spirit. Meanwhile, Yahshua did not hesitate to openly call the Enosh dogs. When the woman indicated that she understood the blessings would come to others out of the abundance which Yahweh gave to his own children, then he told her that for this saying, he had healed her daughter. Yahshua carefully warned his disciples never to make the mistake of failing to discriminate, never to try to bring the Anash who lack understanding into the kingdom of Yahweh on the same terms as the Adam. In Matthew 7:6 he warned them, "Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you." Strong words, yes, but the direct command of Yahshua. We have disobeyed him, so now we are facing the tragic penalty. We have tried to treat the other races as equals. We have expected them to learn the same lessons from our religion that we do. We have expected them to behave with some self-restraint when they find power in their hands. But this is exactly what Yahshua warned us not to do, lest they trample our pearls under their feet and turn again and rend us. Of our advanced technology, they want only to learn how to make weapons to use against us. In fact, they are even using the very food we send them as a weapon against us, for the surplus food will allow them to take more men off the farms and put them into armies and weapon factories. To thus strengthen our enemies is only a fool's method of suicide. To his disciples Yahshua said in John 14:16-17, "And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another Comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not neither knoweth him, but ye know him, for he dwelleth with you and shall be in you." Therefore, it was logical to speak of those whose minds lack the spiritual understanding as beasts, because of their nature. In the book of Daniel, the prophet traces the rise and fall of 4 great world empires ruled by these people. First he interprets Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the great image, whose head was of gold, his breast and arms of silver, his belly and thighs of brass, his legs of iron, as prophesying the successive dominance of 4 great empires. Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon was the first of these, the golden head, and the others being Medo-Persia, Alexander's and Rome. In Daniel chapter 7, Daniel had a vision of 4 remarkable beasts, rising one after the other out of the sea. We know that. Page 8. In prophecy, the sea is symbolic of mankind in general, all people, the great majority of whom are the Anash, the pre-Adamic races. Out of them came the 4 beasts. The first, a lion, symbolized Babylon, like the golden head of the image; the second, a bear, symbolized the great empires of Media and Persia. The third, a leopard, for the swift striking empire of Alexander the Great, and the fourth, a very terrible beast with iron teeth, 10 horns, provinces, and great strength, symbolized Rome. This was exactly the same series, in the same order, as the image of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Its repetition was to confirm the first one as true prophecy. As further confirmation, in the book of Revelation we again find a beast, representing these world empires, rising out of the sea. In Revelation chapter 13, we are told this strange beast had the mouth of a lion, the feet of a bear, yet was otherwise like a leopard, but it had 10 horns, like the 4th beast which Daniel saw. The fact that the qualities of all 4 are now combined in one beast is to show that the 4 great world empires were all of one origin, all manifestations of satanic power, all arising out of the sea of non-Adamic races. They came to power in succession, each gained enormous power over the people who lived in great areas. The rule of each was harsh, tyrannical, brutal, each one more so than those before it. Man's planning, man's skill in putting his plans into effect, man's ability to judge what was needed in ruling an empire, these they had. But the spiritual understanding, the capacity to receive the thoughts of Yahweh, the capacity to organize and rule a nation under Yahweh's laws, this they lacked. Revelation chapter 13 shows this composite beast gained its power from the dragon, Satan. Surely, these empires demonstrated their satanic character. Finally, to make sure that the symbolism of the vision would not be misunderstood, Revelation 13:18 concludes, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man." If these beasts were nations of men, why symbolize them as beasts? We have seen that Yahweh's prophets, and even Yahshua, bluntly called certain races beasts. A nation made up of Chinese people must be a Chinese nation, a nation made up of Negroes must be a Negro nation. Then a nation made up of those whom the Bible calls beasts, must be a beast nation, and it is so stated. The fall of the Roman Empire ended only the vast extent of power in the hands of those who served Satan. It has not ended their desire to regain that power nor their struggle for it. So the book of Revelation shows a continuation of the struggle for power. Carried on by a new beast, right down to the time of the second coming of Yahshua, the beast makes war against him, but is conquered by Yahshua. We see this struggle for power going on in the world today. The non-Adamic people, now organized into many nations, so as to multiply their voting power in the United Nations, where just the cannibal tribes of Africa alone are recognized as about 30 nations, having 30 votes to our 1. There is not one of them that stands reliably on our side. Once in a while, they find it to their advantage to seek something which we also want to accomplish, and on that one issue they vote with us. But the next day, they either proclaim their neutrality in our struggle for the survival of the free world, with which they have no sympathy, or they actively support Russia against us. It is inevitable that those who are of the same race, the same origin, having the same qualities, the same ambitions and ideals, should align themselves together, working for their common purpose. In the great world empires of the past, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Alexander's short-lived empire, and finally Rome, they. Page 9. Had what they wanted, a system which expressed their own true character. They want to restore this system, and the United Nations is made to order for their purpose, as Yahweh prophesied. In Revelation 13:14, we are told that the new beast deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of the miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image of the beast which has the wound by the sword and did live. They seek to make the United Nations a worldwide empire, like that of Babylon and Rome, only greater. An empire which crushes and dominates all nations, enforcing its will by bestially brutal forces, as we have seen in the Congo. An empire which repudiates the one true God, where the name of Yahshua cannot be mentioned because it offends those who hate him, and where the only reference to any divinity is the statue of the pagan god Zeus, in the lobby. An empire ruled by those whom the Bible calls beasts, for they now outnumber the whole white race by 8-1 in voting strength. Though we have 1/6 of the world's population, by this juggling of voting power we are reduced to 1/9 of its voting strength. When we see their plans for world rule developing, we can begin to understand the dreadful prophecy of the coming day when no man might buy nor sell, save he that has the mark or the name of the beast. Nevertheless, the return of Yahshua will overthrow their plans, their power will be destroyed, and they will be put in their proper place. This place emphatically does not include rule over the nations, that has brought too many thousands of years of misery and sorrow. In the final end, when Yahweh's new Jerusalem is set up on earth, we are told in Revelation 22:14-15, Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city, for without are dogs. This doesn't mean you can have your pussycat, canary and goldfish, but faithful Fido is excluded. These dogs Yahshua names are humans. Discrimination, do you say? Yes, indeed. But from start to finish, from Genesis to Revelation, Yahweh has commanded discrimination. I would not oppose it if I could. Critical note by Clifton A. Emahiser. In this lesson on man and beast, Comparet makes many outstanding points which all of us should seriously consider. Few there are in Israel identity who have done as well as he on this subject. I will, though, point out a few remarks where I don't agree with some of his premises. On the other hand, I will also amplify on some of his observations that are exceptional. Comparet made this remark: we don't hate Negroes, we want them to be well-fed, well-clothed, comfortably housed. Additionally, Comparet went on, we have not hated the other races, we have tried to help them, to show them our ways. This is a dangerous position. William Fink wrote in a letter to Ted R. Weiland, dated August 19, 2005 the following: Not without reason is it written in Ecclesiasticus, number 1, 3, 12:5-6 do. Well unto him that is lowly, but give not to the ungodly, hold back thy bread, and give it not unto him, lest he overmaster thee thereby, for else thou shalt receive twice as much evil for all the good thou shalt have done unto him. For the Most High hateth sinners, and will repay vengeance unto the ungodly, and keepeth them against the mighty day of their punishment. By sharing the bread of life, the word of Yahweh, with the other races, they overmaster us by it. They force universalist interpretations through phrases such as page 10. Whosoever and all men, phrases never meant for other races, deceiving the sheep into unlawful communion and fornication, which is race mixing, Jude 7, 1 Cor 10. In reality, the word man should only be applied to sons of Adam, Romans 5:14, 1 Cor 15:22-45, number 1, 340:1, and the other races have no part in the biblical use of the term Adam. In his presentation, Comparet well said, now, through the United Nations where they outnumber and outvote us, they plan to rule, plunder, enslave, and reduce us to their level. Again, Comparet made a very excellent observation when he said, these Enosh were commonly called dogs, both in the Old and New Testaments. For example, Psalm chapter 22:16 is recognized by all Bible scholars as prophetic of Yahshua's first coming and crucifixion. In the 16th verse it states, For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me, they pierced my hands and my feet. Yahweh is certainly not complaining that some four-footed dogs barked at him, there is no record that any ever did. He is speaking of those who delivered him up to be crucified. The use of this word is common in the New Testament. Though the Romans did the actual crucifying of Yasnua, the bad fig Jews were legally responsible for that act. Therefore, the bad fig Jews are in the category of beasts rather than man. When we speak of the Jews we should rather designate them as bad fig Jews as opposed to the good fig Judeans who were the racially pure of the true tribe of Judah. Comparet made another good citation at Philippians 3:2 Paul says, Beware of dogs, bad fig Jews, beware of evil workers. The four-footed dogs are no more evil workers than cats and cows. Paul and those to whom he wrote knew these dogs were the two-footed kind. Then Comparet contradicts himself by saying, Then they will establish the kingdom of Yahweh on earth, and from this Yahweh's blessings will be extended to such others as can understand and receive them in the proper spirit. At another place Comparet made this observation, finally, to make sure that the symbolism of the vision would not be misunderstood, Revelation 13:18 concludes. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. Then Comparet later added to this, when we see their plans for world rule developing, we can begin to understand the dreadful prophecy of the coming day when no man might buy nor sell, save he that has the mark or the name of the beast. It should be pointed out here that, while Comparet did an excellent job on the book of Revelation in his series of 14 lessons, he fumbled the ball by not identifying the second beast at Revelation 13 as being identical to Daniel 7:24-26. These two passages are rather prophesying the then future reign of Justinian I, and his influence in setting up the papacy, which in turn dictated to the kings of Europe, lasting 1260 years. The office of the Pope is the Mr. 666 of Scripture, rather than a future Antichrist. The second beast of Revelation is now past. Its history,